Angel is brought to you by Audible with an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original audio shows, news, comedy, and more. Get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial at audible.com/angelbook.
Hey everybody, welcome to Angel, my podcast about angel investing. In this podcast, I sit down with angel investors, and in the first half of the show, I talk about how they got into angel investing, how they choose companies, negotiate terms, and generally work with founders to become successful angels with positive returns. That's the name of the game. In the second half of each episode, I talk to the angel investors about their portfolio. Today, I talk to Gil Penchina, who has invested in close to 200 startups and runs the most active syndicates on AngelList. Please enjoy this very interesting, very insightful discussion with Gil Penchina. Hey everybody, we wanted you to meet people who have been doing angel investing for a couple of years and who have their own theories. In the book, I talk about my theories, I talk about some other people's theories, but we really wanted to thread the needle here as it is, and connect you with people who do it for a living like I do. So you can hear a range of stories and maybe reinforce some of the learnings and maybe even iterate on them and get opposing point of views about angel investing. Gil Penchina is a super angel and he runs Flight VC. I have done many deals with him and we run into each other all the time in the industry because we both over the last 5 or 6 years embraced something called AngelList syndicates or syndicates. They're not specific only to AngelList, that just happens to be the biggest platform. There are also syndicates on Funders List, and people do it themselves, and there's Seed Invest, and then there's a new class of company that does non-accredited investor deals, including Republic and Seed Invest. So there's a bunch to talk about, but I think I'll start with something very basic, Gil, and thanks for doing this, which is how did you get into angel investing? What was the first moment somebody pulled you in and said, hey, you should have angel invest in this company, or did you just have an epiphany that this would be something that would work for me? Because when we met, you were CEO of Wakia and you were CEO of companies. You were a leader inside of tech companies. Why make the switch to the other side of the table?
So funny enough, I started angel investing in the late 90s, and I was at eBay and would constantly meet with interesting startups, and then would go back to the office and spend all my time with people who worked at McKinsey and Bain before coming to eBay. And so my joke was I got involved in startups because I liked the people I was meeting with at startups a lot more than I liked the people I was working with.
What's the difference between people who work at big companies and people who operate in the ecosystem of startups? What would you say the key differences are?
Boy, that's a hard one. I mean, I think it is a tolerance for risk. It's an openness to new ideas, and it's a certain amount of almost suicidal behavior, right? The best entrepreneurs are actually crazy.
Right.
And there's something like, there's a tremendous amount of energy when you find a new sector open up and young people dive in and anyone can become an expert in 6 months. And I remember a friend at eBay saying, I want to go do that. Like, I want to like go run a startup. And I looked at him and I said, you want to have 3 months of money before you're bankrupt, have no idea if your product's going to work, and constantly be shooting in the dark. And he goes, no, I want to be at a startup.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, you
I
don't know
said,
the definition.
Yes, that's what a startup is, right? I mean, I think, there's a reason why it tends to be younger people who do most startups. It's because they don't have anything to lose, right?
Yeah, I hear often it's a young person's game, and if you have kids in private school and a mortgage payment, it does become much harder to be a founder, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the ramen salaries are great for the early employees. If you're a founder, you shouldn't even be taking a ramen salary.
You should be on zero salary and like literally living on mom or dad's couch or a friend's couch.
You live in the office, you eat the cereal that we provide to employees in the office 3 meals a day, and off you go.
But we have seen some older founders. Seems to be a little bit of a trend, actually, that some people are coming back for their second or third startup. When you see somebody like that, does your mind say this person's going to have an easier time at this, or is it just as hard for them who have gone through it twice and are 35 to 45-year-old startup founders?
So I'd actually say there's 3 patterns I've seen. One is when an enterprise founder wants to start another enterprise company, I write a blank check.
Got it.
Because there's two heuristics in there. One is repeat founder doing the same thing, and And the other is enterprise is a place where adults and sales and credibility actually matters. If you see a consumer founder who's in his 50s run away,
Right.
because they just don't understand what the average 10 and 20-year-old consumer wants.
Fascinating. So if a 50-year-old is on their is going to launch their Snapchat or their Instagram competitor,
run away.
They don't hang out with 15-year-olds, so how could they ever?
They don't get it.
They don't get it.
Right?
There is something about using your own product that's important, isn't it?
So that's one. And the other is what I call the Michael Jordan factor. So Michael Jordan's an amazing basketball player, or was. And when Michael Jordan at one point decided to go play baseball,
right,
I put my checkbook away. Because he's an amazing athlete, but he's not going to be the world's best baseball player.
Right.
After a while, he got bored of playing baseball, and he decides to go back and play basketball. I write a blank check. Right? If you're willing to do the same thing again, I love that. So there was a VP of engineering at Amazon, for example, incredibly talented, has built a ton of great cloud services, comes to me with a connected frying pan idea.
Hardware, consumer hardware.
I walk away.
Right.
He comes back with a cloud idea, I write a check.
Right.
Right.
And that speaks to domain expertise. If you have some level of domain expertise, it de-risks the deal in your mind?
If you're older, you should be doing something you're good at.
Right.
If you're new, I mean, there are exceptions. Like there are new industries forming where anyone is an expert after 6 months.
Right.
But most of the time, the kids process it faster. Our brains get less plastic as we get older.
Right. If a new category comes out, when mobile came out, or local or cryptocurrencies now, it's just some of these young minds are just
they just get it, or they grew up with it.
Right. Yeah. If you grew up with Bitcoin and you've been trading it for 5 years and buying stuff with it, you're going to look at it differently than somebody who doesn't own any Bitcoins.
Yeah.
Let's talk about sourcing deals. This is one of the big issues that people who are new founders are going to face after they maybe do some syndicate deals, which is one of the arguments I make in the book. Hey, before you start sourcing your own deals, why not put $1,000 or $2,000 into your syndicate, which you have a dozen of them on AngelList. You can just search for Gil Penchina, or you go to the syndicates page on AngelList, you'll see Gil's syndicates. What's your advice for people to source syndicate deals and how to behave as a syndicate? And then we'll get on to sourcing your own deals. What are your thoughts on, if you're a new angel investor, kind of cutting your teeth on doing small checks, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 into syndicates? And how do you pick them, and how do you behave after you make a syndicate deal?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is this sort of investing is much more risky than most people realize. And my math has been 1 in 30 have sort of paid back the other 29.
Right.
And so, I would start with, I need a budget, and at least on AngelList, the minimum's $1,000. So I have to sort of look at this and go, if I don't have $30,000 and I can't afford to put $1,000 into at least 30 companies, and I can't be comfortable assuming I'm going to lose all of it, I should just sign up for, a bunch of syndicates, sign up for your syndicate, and watch.
Yeah.
Because I can probably learn almost as much from watching as I can from writing the check.
This is an interesting concept. You could go to the syndicates page, put your email address in, make a commitment of $1,000, but then not actually close it. So you can show interest and just learn by reading the deals.
Right. And I would argue learning is the best way to start anything. Right? So create a fantasy sports portfolio the first year, watch which ones you picked, and then come back a year or two later and look at them. If you happen to be able to waste the 30 grand, and it won't hurt you if you lose, start very small. And again, because I will say, when you lose $1,000, it hurts a lot more than when you lose your fantasy pick. So there is more learning.
Right.
But ultimately, this is a learning game. Get in, learn at whatever level is appropriate for you. And over time, you start to learn heuristics and your own rules.
Let's talk about what you think a young person, let's say, who has $1 million in net worth or $2 million in net worth, let's take two as an example. What percentage would a young person who makes $150,000, $250,000 a year, has $2 million in net worth, somebody in their 30s, let's say, who wants to dabble in this, what would be a percentage that you think would be good for them to deploy of their $2 million net worth over 5 years. Let's say 4 years, 5 years.
I mean, I'm not a...
If they were your cousin and they said, give me some candid advice, and you're like, here's, or your brother or sister or something like that. They really want to do it. They want to put 40 hours a week into it.
I hear you. I'm not a wealth manager, so I don't know the correct answer, but my gut is if you put more than 5 to 10% of your money into something this speculative, it's going to hurt when you lose it all. But if you put 5 to 10% of your money in at 10x's, that has a real impact on your life. So that
Right.
probably feels like the right sort of number.
It's interesting in the book, I say the exact number. So it's great. For people listening, Gil doesn't have a copy of the book yet. They're just coming in. We're recording this before he has a copy. In the book, I say 5 to 10%. So it's pretty interesting that we both have the same advice for our own family members of the risk profile. And the same reason, which is if you were to lose it, there's really no downside. It's minor. You won't miss it. But if you do go 10x, oh my gosh, that could
matter. Now, if you're Elon, he'll tell you why the right answer is 100%.
Right. We're not all wired like Elon. We don't all have the goal of making $100 billion in order to push it into a Mars mission.
Correct.
Some of us want to have a house, maybe a second house, and maybe be independently wealthy and be able to make better choices in life. Or
so if
easier
you're
choices.
in your 40s and you're willing to live on friends' couches when you can't afford rent,
Shove it
that is
all
an
in.
alternative strategy.
Yes, you could
Not
shove
one I
it
would
all
recommend.
in. I'm kind of with you on that. How does your deal flow work now, and how did you start it in the beginning? And what's your general advice to people who, maybe they've got 10 investments, they've done 10 syndicates, and now they want to start getting in the mix and maybe originating some of their own deal flow? What are some strategies you've seen work for yourself or other people?
So Silicon Valley is an unusual place in that the ethos here is if you help people and do good things will happen to you. And so I always start by going out and finding ways to help. Right? I offer assistance. I write about interesting companies. I, offer to help with introductions. I offer to sit down over coffee and brainstorm stuff. And, when I started, there was really no reason to take me up on that because I really wasn't useful for much. And so I would just say, what do you need help with? Is there anything I can help with? And I would get involved, and by getting involved, I again sort of learn more about the company, learn more about the founders, and in the process, would sometimes get excited about the company and end up investing. And
you've really played the role as evangelist for some of these companies, spreading the word about what they do. In the early stages, companies, they need some advocates out there, don't they? It makes a big difference if you're calling on behalf of them to introduce them to another investor.
And also just you want cheerleaders because the stuff we do as entrepreneurs is a grind, and there are times where it really gets you down, right? The stuff is hard, and having sort of emotional support and cheerleaders, frankly, even psychologically, really helps a lot sometimes.
So even beyond the fundamentals of the business, just being somebody who the founder can talk to and who can say, hey, you can do this, and it's okay if it doesn't work out. It's going to work out one way or the other. Let's talk a little bit about when you look at the terms of a deal. What are the things you look for in these early stage companies in terms of terms? What are the things you don't worry about? And what are the things that you obsess over and really want to get right when you're looking at a deal? Turn-ons and turn-offs in the notes.
There isn't that much. You're sort of looking at what price you're paying for the stock. Sometimes that price is confusing. And you're looking at things like pro rata is probably the other one, which is, do I get a right to invest more? And even there, things get confusing and messy. And so what I would say is, if you've been on AngelList for a while and you're reading deal terms, you may not always know all the deal terms. Because it is much more like sausage making, right? You don't really want to know what goes into the sausage. And I've seen all kinds of tricky things designed to sort of hurt the small investor. But at the end of the day, if you get in the right deal, even if you got screwed over in some term, it ends up working out okay.
So even if you lost information rights in a future round, so you don't know what's going on, you're flying blind, they won't send you information about the company because some Series B investor wipes out information rights and wipes out pro rata, and the majority of the preferred agree to wipe out pro rata for the previous investors, and you can't re-up. You still own some number of shares in a rocket ship.
Yep.
and you'll get paid for them.
Yeah.
You just may not be able to optimize as much.
You can get maximum value for your investment. And so what the professional investors do is they're always focused on protecting all of those extra call options, right? It's not ideal that they often screw the little guy, but that's the business they're in.
Have you been able to protect your rights? I mean, scrubbing names here for a minute, but when people do come in and say, hey, we want to get rid of pro rata for this group of people or cram them down, have you been able to, since you lead in a syndicate, be able to say and have influence with the founder because you were an early investor, say, hey, I need you to fight for me for these rights successfully? Have you been able to have those candid conversations with the new investors, the founder, and say, hey, let's not remove the protections that these that these early stage angels put into the deal?
Yeah. No, I mean, you see it all the time. Even if you put the protections in the next round, I'm thinking of a deal we did where Matrix ends up doing the Series A, and they start rewriting some of the terms, and the founder explains to me why this is appropriate. And I say, that's nice, but I don't think they're fair for our, investors. And he's like, well, they're saying it's standard. And my favorite word in venture capital is standard.
Right. Who's standard?
Because A, there is no standard.
Right.
And B, standard is the excuse I use when I'm trying to do something I want. So to your point, I can call up the guy at Matrix who's a friend, and I can say, look, I get what you're trying to do, but you shouldn't do this to us because you're going to see us again.
Right.
And it's not this deal, it's the next deal where, your behavior is going to come back to bite you.
Right.
And so there is an argument that the more deals you're in, the more ability you have to sort of get a fair fight with the bigger guys.
I've had in the book, we have a chapter, Jason Calacanis Does Not Eat Shit, and it is, it recalls a story in which somebody told me I needed to eat shit sometimes, and I told them I do not, and we had this exact fight over terms, and I used the same position, which was, if I hit 5 unicorns and 125 investments, do you really want to miss the 6th or have me not refer them to you? I think the equilibrium that's starting to occur between the venture community and what's called the super angel community.
Now that said, I'm in another deal where they have raised a seed from us. There was an uncapped note, my least favorite thing ever.
Right, but you did it.
Really good entrepreneur, liked the guy. Sort of was willing to break one of my rules I try to stick to. He's gone on to raise an A, B, C, and D in 3 years.
And the note hasn't converted?
The note converted.
Oh, converted at the A?
At the A. No pro rata, no information rights, no anything.
So you have no idea. You're flying blind.
Yeah.
And
on the other hand, the valuation of the company has gone up 30x. So, it's hard to feel too mad.
Right. So
but I could feel mad anyway.
Yeah, you're in a way you wish that you didn't do the uncapped note, but then you're thinking to yourself, my God, I bet on this person and it paid off. Yeah. We're now 30 times in the money. How do you deal with failure? When you see these companies coming apart, it feels like it can get a little bit contentious. It gets a little ugly sometimes. What have you learned over, I know you've done over 100 investments at this point, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Maybe 150 or 200. What's the number?
Probably like 200 now. 20 years.
How do you manage your psychology, Gil's psychology, when dealing with the unrelenting amount of bad news that can come in on a regular basis? I find myself sometimes taking 20 phone calls a week, and none of them are about good things. And you're just like, wow, that was 20 hours of bad news. I'm sure you have the same situation. How do you handle the massive number of defeats you have in this stage of investing?
I just don't notice it. I mean, my joke at my first startup was when you watch a train fall off the tracks and there's a fire and people are bleeding, it's really upsetting.
Right.
And when that happens to you every day for a while, at some point you see a train fall off the tracks and you go, oh, it's Tuesday.
Yeah. It's become, it's like being an ambulance driver. Yeah.
Right? You're like, yeah, it's a Tuesday. There's another train off the tracks and we'll go pick up some bodies and some go to the morgue and some go to the emergency room and someone should probably put out the fire and let's get back to it.
It's just business.
It's just how it is.
Yeah. It's interesting. that we're having this conversation because in the book I do talk about my time on an ambulance, and I was amazed at how some of the people who had done it for a long time had become hardened, and when somebody was sitting there in front of us dying and we're doing CPR on them or putting an IV in or they're in cardiac arrest or having an asthma attack, they were just robots. They would just
doing the work.
They would just do the work and say, you know what? There's a life on the line here. It's going to be all business. And you have to be that way as an angel, right? I mean, things are going to fail. What percentage do you think are going to fail in your portfolio on a name basis?
Vast majority.
70, 80, 90.
Yeah.
Wow. And the failures come early, don't they?
The failures come early, although there are the zombies who perpetuate.
What's that mean, a zombie? Explain to the audience.
I met with someone from wine.com, just socially. I wasn't looking to invest, who was really bullish on the company and telling me how great they were doing. And I was like, didn't they raise money in 1998?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And then, we still have plenty in the bank. And I go, well, that's great. So it's been 20 years. How's it going? And she says, well, we're going to do 90 million in sales this year.
Wow.
And I go, wow, that's less than one Costco store. 20 years in, almost 100 million in venture capital.
90 million
and you
sales.
built a small Costco store. Right. Ow.
Yeah.
But it's still working. It's still growing. They're break even. No one's going to make any money.
It would be the greatest mom and pop business ever.
Yes.
If you were a solo owner, if you owned that wine store that made 90 million a year and had a 20% margin, you'd be just printing money. Yeah. But for a venture investment or angel investors, why is this a bad outcome? Explain
Because you pay a price assuming it's $1 billion company.
Ah.
And so you've been, basically you've overpaid. And worse, there's no buyer for this. So it's just going to sit there forever and you'll probably never get dividends. And so you own a share of a dream.
And this is where moderate success is the enemy of the breakout success. It's almost better they just take some, and this is where people, I think, sometimes look at the behavior of startups or the venture community and what we do in Silicon Valley. It doesn't make much sense that a company would just go for it so unabashedly and hard and then fail so spectacularly. Well, what do you do with a $90 million company with $10 million in EBITDA? It's like, who do you sell it to and for how much?
I mean, the other argument I often make is when things are going poorly and they don't have an idea for how to run against the wall, was like, okay, let's just quit.
Quit.
Because you seem like really talented people and there's probably something better you could be doing with your time, and I'll go write a check for that.
Absolutely. So somebody saying, hey, we have 20 cents on the dollar in the bank account, we're going to
just hand it back.
Hand it back. How many times has that happened to you?
It happens.
Yeah. 2 or 3% of the time, maybe.
Yeah, it's small. I mean, the amazing thing about the people who do this is they're really passionate about what they're doing and they don't like to give up and they're not quitters. But, there's only so many times you can pound your head against the wall before you realize the wall's winning.
And when a founder comes to you and they want to pivot, how do you handle that discussion? So, hey, we're going to pivot. And maybe we're asking for a bridge financing. So let's put those two things together. Companies, the original idea didn't work very well, but they discovered something. Seems moderately promising. How do you then evaluate if you want to keep investing? They say, hey, we want a little bit of a bridge. We've got the team together. We've got the knowledge together. We're up and running. We want to pursue the second idea, throw away the first. How do you decide if you're going to do that bridge? You put in $25K already. How do you decide you pull the trigger on another 25 or a $10K or a $50K bridge?
I have really only one simple rule. What's happening to the old one? And usually the answer is, well, we're hedging and we're going to keep it up and it's, provides some security and safety.
The original idea, the original business. Ah, that's an interesting one.
And then I pass. Because my argument is if you're going to pivot.
Hard.
Don't, there's an entrepreneurship professor I talked to once who said, when you have 1 foot on the train and 1 foot on the station, it's an awkward place to be when the train starts moving.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that would not be a great place to be.
So, you're a small team. You got a limited number of resources. You're going to try to run 2 businesses.
One that proved that it didn't work so much that you had to find a new one.
Yeah. So why would you do that?
Why would you keep running a business
that we've all agreed sucks?
Yeah, this is not a venture scale business, and you still want to run it. Why do they do that? Why do entrepreneurs still want to run that business?
It's my baby. I built it. I love it. There's some use to it. It'll help me with some part of something I'm doing next. It's generating some money.
Right.
And I go, yeah, and an enormous amount of distraction.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had that happen in one of my companies, Inside.com, where we owned YouTube assets, and they were making 15 to 25K a month, and we tried to sell it, but nobody wanted to buy a 15 to 25K thing. So I just said, you know what? Just leave it there. Do not touch it. Collect the 15K a month, and let's just be all in on the email newsletters and make that business worth it. Well, if we post some more videos, and we've always gone back and forth, like, should we start? It's like, you got to be all in on one thing, one concept for it to work.
I mean, one of the old sayings is 7 people standing on a needle can push a needle through concrete.
Wow, I've never heard that one. Fascinating. Let's talk a little bit as we wrap up here, and we're going to go to, after the break, your portfolio review. But what's your criteria for selecting a company to invest in? I've heard many discussions with people who just follow other investors. So there are people who follow you or follow Sequoia into a deal, and any deal they do, they want to follow. I've heard from people they want to pick the founder, market, product, and business, unique business idea, business as in the revenue of the business model. How does Gil Penchina like to evaluate deals?
I don't have a rule like it's the founder, it's the product, it's the market. What I would say is those are 3 of the 3, 4, 5 attributes that matter, and one of them has to be a wow. One aspect of what you're doing has to make me go, Jesus. Like either you're amazing, or the product's amazing, or the market makes my head explode.
So if you're looking at it and you say, wow, these founders seem solid, but my God, they built a product that people love. And I'm not sure about the market, but God, there's just some group of people who love this product. That's enough.
Here's a great one, right? Which unfortunately I didn't invest in, but the team seems somewhat mediocre and fractious and infighting.
Is this Twitter?
And the product seems not that hard to build.
Twitter.
And people love it.
But people are nuts about it. It's got to be Twitter.
Yeah.
And then other times you have a product people love, like Airbnb.
Yeah.
The founders, I don't think, blew people's socks off in the beginning. They seemed like a designer and just solid but not breakout. And a market that made no sense. Sleeping on people's couches.
But they had some traction.
Yeah. What do you look for in traction and this sort of, and explain what traction is and why it's important?
I'm going to say there's 2 elements to it. One is customers who keep coming back, right? Like, have you sort of scratched some itch that leads to the addiction one looks for in a consumer product?
So repeatability, how often customers come back for the product, not just one time.
Frequency. I think Sergey at one point called it the toothbrush thing. Like, do you use it every day? Although I don't think people use Airbnb every day.
No, but there are people who use it multiple times a year. Right. Have you ever stayed in an Airbnb?
I've stayed in a couch surfing, which is even weirder.
You did a couch surfing?
Yeah, it's great.
See, this is the thing. You're an adult. We're both adults. I can't imagine an adult
staying with a complete stranger who provides a couch.
To me,
Budapest.
It is. I would never have been able to get my head around Airbnb. The idea of, my mind immediately goes to I'm going to be murdered, or if I rent this place out to people, they're going to commit a murder in my thing. How do you get past your own biases? Do you think about your own blind sides too as an investor, and do you try to self-correct?
Well, I didn't grow up in New York, so I don't think all strangers are bad.
Well played.
I grew up in a small town where we never locked the door to our house.
What?
Because, the biggest crimes in Amherst, Massachusetts were people stealing pizza from the pizza guy.
Literally stealing a slice, yeah.
He'd be out delivering a pizza and someone would run over to the car and steal one of the extra boxes while he was out.
Right. And they probably were friends of his and they did it for fun, just to break chops.
I mean, I would tell you, I have, some suspicions like everyone does about new things and whatever, but eBay, where I, did my first startup, only would have worked if you assume most people are basically good. And Wikia and Wikipedia, which I was involved in, only work if you assume people are good.
Yeah.
And at some point, if you get enough experience with the fact that people actually are good, you start to believe that, it's actually true, and that by being open to people, you may occasionally be disappointed, but the vast majority of interactions are so much better and more genuine and deeper. And so I open my home to people and have, I've even had people I don't know stay at my home when I'm traveling. I just put it up on Facebook and I go, hey, I've got my apartment's available. Who wants it?
Wow.
And my joke, because I get horrified looks from people frequently when I do that.
I'm horrified right now. You can't
I know,
see me
right?
now. You're listening to
Complete
the audio, but
strangers.
I'm completely
Off Facebook, staying in my apartment.
But if you're open to things, good things can happen. I mean, I think it's one of the. I think it's kind of your brand is that you're open to trying new things.
And the data on this is it happened about 15 times. People came, variety of, friends, strangers, whatever, came and stayed at my apartment. And the only thing I would ask is like, if you can leave it clean and put the sheets in the laundry before you leave.
Right. It's a pretty low bar.
And of those 15, one screwed me and did not, put out, clean up and put the sheets away. And you know who that one was?
A good friend of yours.
My cousin.
Your cousin, of course. I was about to say it has to be somebody incredibly close to you
Who doesn't feel grateful
yeah.
for this stranger letting them stay somewhere.
Exactly. No, so I think I can summarize your angel investing philosophies. Be open, assume good faith, take risk, and don't sweat
The little things.
The little things and the losses. You have to enjoy this process.
Yeah.
You will love what you do.
Yeah. I enjoy the chaos.
I mean, it's one of the things that I see in the cohort of angel investors that we all started around the same time, came up. I mean, you started in 1999 doing some of it, but your full-time kind of coincided with Angel List's ascension, I think, which is the same with me and the Sequoia Scouts program. I see this group of people loves their lives. They love what they do. What do you love so much about this? What is it that you wake up every day and you go, I can't believe I get to do this for a living? What is it?
I mean, I get to meet interesting people who are trying to change the world, and every day I'm learning. And, the combination of learning and sort of the people I get to meet is pretty amazing.
I think that's so well said. All right, when we get back, we'll go through Gil's portfolio. Yes, Audible. I love Audible because it makes me smarter, and Audible is, of course, the leading provider of audiobooks and spoken word audio products. Their content is unmatched in the world. Their selection of audiobooks is tremendous, and you can access those books anywhere. Yes, that's right. iPhones, iPad, Android, Windows, your desktop, wherever you are, you can get your Audible, and the app has tons of great features. One of the great features that people may or may not know about is that you can very easily put it on sleep mode. So when I go to sleep at night, I put my earbuds in, Apple's earbuds, I put them in. My wife wants complete quiet, so she's sleeping. I like to go to bed, 30 minutes of an audiobook. I set the timer for 30 minutes, and I drift off to sleep while learning, and it just calms me down when I'm at the end of the night. I love doing that sleep feature. Also, you can speed up. Some authors speak very slowly, and I want them to speak a little bit faster. So I put it at 1.5 so I can consume my content faster. These are some of the great features. The other one I love is when you're listening to an audiobook, you can take a note. Additionally, when you're listening to audiobooks, they now have a killer feature, which is there's a little car icon. I'm looking at it right now, and I just noticed it in the app. And I don't know if they've talked about it, but they have car mode, where you click on the car icon and it gives you a nice, big, easy rewind 30 seconds. You ever have that moment where you're like, that person said something brilliant in this audiobook? Well, with Audible, you just hit that one big, huge 30-second rewind button, and you get to reinforce that learning. And if you were daydreaming and missed it, you can just go boop. And a lot of times I'll hear something interesting. I said, let me just go back and hear that one more time so I get it. And then you can hit a plus, a bookmark. And what I'll do is, if I'm in a situation where I want to take a note, I hit Siri, I hit the audio to text, and I write my note. So I just speak my note, save it into the app. It pauses the book while I'm writing the note, then I save it. Or I can hit play and take notes while I'm listening to the book in the Audible app. It also keeps your place. So if you're using your iPad or your iPhone or your desktop, It'll keep that synced. Chapter navigation is super easy. Speed control we talked about. You can even share a book from your library by using Send This Book. They also have channels. This is a new thing that's been around for just a little bit, where they have exclusive content, original short stories, comedy, best of news, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. And if you don't like a book, you can easily return it, get an exchange, no questions asked. They have this listener guarantee, which, I haven't taken advantage of because books are so affordable that I have even thought, I don't even want to return it because I want the author, even though I didn't finish it and care for it, I want them to get a little bit of cheddar out of it. But maybe I should. Maybe I should do that. I'm just thinking about it right now. So here's our special offer just for our audience. Get a free audio book at audible.com/angelbook. Audible.com/angelbook. You'll get a 30-day free trial membership. And my book of the week, I'm looking at two different books that I listened to recently. One is The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly, who was just on This Week in Startups, and he is tremendous, and the book is great. It's an amazing framework for how to think about the future of technology and where the opportunities are. But another book that I've seen all over the place is The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, UCK. And this book by Mark Manson, I don't know who this person is, but it's a pretty interesting book because it does drift into some Tim Ferriss territory, some entrepreneur territory, but it really explains how you can craft a life without all this anxiety that people have. So it's kind of a hodgepodge of different ideas, but I actually didn't think I was going to like it, and it actually turned out I did like The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. It's a pretty charged title, but I think the book is actually pretty good. I think you're going to get some good things out of it. So those are my two choices, The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F and Kevin Kelly's The Inevitable. That being said, I just downloaded Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I can't remember how to pronounce his name, but he's the person who wrote Black Swan. Somebody who read my book, Angel, told me I need to read his book, Anti-Fragile, because it has a lot to do with my betting and gambling strategies. So if you haven't listened to Angel, my book, that's another recommendation. Go ahead and buy that. I actually speak the audio on that book, and we have some great episodes of Angel, the podcast, at the end of that, where I do some original content. So thanks again to my friends at Audible. Go to audible.com/angelbook and get your 30-day free trial membership. Audible.com/angelbook. Audible.com/angelbook. I love you, Audible. Thank you so much for sponsoring independent media like Angel, the podcast, and This Week in Startups, which you guys and gals over there have been supporting for so long. I truly appreciate it, and congratulations on just keep iterating on the product. Every time I open that app, I find new features I love to go along with the great content library I've built over the years. So thank you again to my friends at Audible for all the support. Let's get back to this amazing episode. Okay, I'm sitting with Gil Penchina. He is a super angel. He runs Flight.vc. Current obsession is
cryptocurrencies and distributed.
We lost you to cryptocurrencies. Oh no, another one. You're down the rabbit hole with Naval and David Sachs.
Completely.
Chamath. Everybody's down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
How did you go down the rabbit hole on cryptocurrencies? What is the tipping point for you that made you obsessed with it now? What did you see?
My tipping point was that I'm an investor in a mobile browser company called Brave.
Okay, I've heard of this. Explain what it does.
Brave is a privacy-centric browser.
Love it.
That prevents people from snooping on you as you go around the internet.
Genius.
And blocks really annoying ads.
Fantastic.
So who wouldn't
doesn't want that?
One? And
so what does that have to do with cryptocurrency? It's a browser company.
So they, they raised some money and they're out working on their browser, and they came up with this idea that the best way to make the internet better for everyone is if they could sort of prevent annoying ads from showing up to consumers and pay the publishers for the privilege of removing those ads. And so they launched a currency called the BAT, the Brave Attention Token. And this is where sort of the rabbit hole gets pretty deep, but they went out and publicly sold this token. The token is not equity, it's not debt, it's a thing that they will use to pay people. And they raised $35 million for it in 24 seconds from people on the internet.
So people don't own equity of the company, they own a token. The token will then be spread amongst publishers every month. The publishers then will be able to sell it on an open market like you can sell Ethereum,
Yep.
Ripple, or any of these Bitcoin or any of these other stellar coins.
Yep. And the notion is if you can create a currency with velocity that has use, you can fund a project. And what you're seeing increasingly is a number of these blockchain projects that have no company. They're self-funding with a coin that sort of recirculates and has use. And a great example of an upcoming one is Filecoin.
I've heard about this one. Explain what this
Right.
one is.
So the idea is anyone who wants to can provide storage to the system. So I have an extra hard drive. It's sitting around. I plug it in. I can earn Filecoin for that other people using my hard drive. People who want a anonymous, peer-to-peer, secure storage system can buy coins and get storage. And unlike an Amazon where you put down your credit card and then they bill you every month, here you put down your coin, and if you forget, your coin expires at some point and your file just gets deleted. So it's on you to remember to keep paying for it. There's no customer service, there's no credit card, there's none of the sort of cost that goes into a normal storage system. And so as a result, it's dramatically cheaper sort of by design.
Amazing. All right, let's go through your portfolio really quick. I know you're busy. So let's talk about one of your biggest wins. How did you find it? And what did you get right there?
So it was definitely a bet the entrepreneur investment. I had been an angel in PayPal, and there was a really impressive group of people there, including David Sachs and others.
Elon Musk, David Sachs, Peter Thiel, Max Levchin, Reid Hoffman.
Yeah, Jeremy Stoppelman, and more.
And more. Unbelievable. Whatever they put in the ramen there was the right stuff.
Yeah, I have a whole thesis on why that was, but
Which is?
that's for another time.
Well, give it to me briefly.
They had a brutally competitive business where most often they weren't really the first, they were first of many. And they made enough money to be dangerous, but not enough money to retire.
So they got a taste, but it was enough of a taste that made you want more.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Whereas like the Google guys made a ton of money and most of the early ones retired.
It's inside their head, like, my God, I've got $1 billion. Why would I ever do anything else? But when
Why
you
work?
get 10 million or 5 million or 20 million, God, that just lights a fire under you.
Yeah.
I got to add a zero.
So one of them was Reid Hoffman.
Oh my God.
And Reid, pings me at some point, says, I'm starting something new, and I FedEx him a blank check.
Amazing. And that turned out to be?
That was LinkedIn.
Oh my God. Sold for $20 or $30 billion to Microsoft.
Yeah, and the first round was 20 million, roughly.
Wow.
So there was some dilution along the way, and I didn't get pro rata. And as a result, I only made about a 750x, which is probably less than Uber, but, worked out okay.
750x is a career maker because you've made 200 investments in your career. So if you just look at it that way,
It pays for all of them.
it pays for all of 3x. You could go for another 15 years of investing and still not burn that capital, which is one of the interesting things. Okay, now we go into the hard part. What's a company that imploded, that's no longer around, that you just look at and go, it's just heartbreaking to me. Either the circumstance, how it went down, or that it didn't work and you just wish it had. We all have these. What's a heartbreaker?
My favorite train wreck of late probably has to be BP.
BP.
BEEPI, which is going to be the new Craigslist, new eBay Motors, new Auto Trader,
Amazing.
car marketplace. Customers loved it. Service was amazing. Burned through over $100 million in, call it, 2 years, and accomplished absolutely nothing.
And this one was loved by customers. You could buy a used car super easy and sell a used car super easy, right? They bought the car from you, I think. And
Yep. If they didn't sell it in 30 days, they would buy it from you.
what a great
Guaranteed,
device.
right? So it was a bunch of really cool services, and at the end of the day, it was the web van of its generation.
So mismanaged, didn't spend the money wisely.
And sort of had a business plan that didn't exactly work, but much like Webvan, customers loved it. I mean, customers loved Webvan because
Sure.
it was cheap.
Cosmo,
and,
Urban Fetch, all these things were great, but they were subsidized. The unit economics didn't work.
Unit economics didn't work.
All right, take me to the final as we wrap up here. The single or double that Founders wanted to sell, got them on base. They probably did well, but you as an investor were like, gosh, this is the worst 2 to 10x that I ever had. They should have kept going and kept this company independent.
Yeah, I never worry about that.
You don't worry about the singles and doubles that could have been home runs.
There are always singles and doubles. They happen. I've had ones where I got $1.05 back for every dollar I put in.
Ugh.
Had ones where I got 80 cents back for every dollar I put. Like, I don't spend a lot of time obsessing about woulda, coulda, shoulda, because you never know. And the thing I always tell founders is if a strategic is willing to overpay, you should almost always take it. The hard part that we always argue about is what is overpay.
Yeah. Mine in this category was Swell, which was a podcasting app. 4 years ago, I put $250K into it, and we made $100K. The 6 months after I bought it, it was the fastest I've ever made $100,000, I think. Like, literally, Apple buys the company. I make a little bit of money, and I just, why are we selling? If Apple wants to buy it, why don't we go for another 5 years and see what we can make, or another 2 years, and let's put another $10 million into this company. And for the founders, I guess that was real money, because they own 40% of the company each, or 35% of the company, and it's just...
I look at it as they'll be back, and I'll get to invest again, and next time they're going to be more dangerous.
Yes, that's true. You're so much more zen than me, Gil. I have to stop grinding my teeth when I get a win, and just look at it more philosophically.
The worst thing in the world. I got a 2x in a year. Geez, I feel terrible.
I did. And this is the problem. I think I've been the Uber and Thumbtack investments have just so spoiled me that I'm just like, why are we not getting 5,000x? Why can't we have a 10,000x here? Why are we not 1,000x? We have to keep working.
You get to recycle the money and do it again.
Yes, that's how I got to peace with it. All right.
Cool.
You've been listening to two of the luckiest individuals on the planet talk about the greatest job in the world, which is angel investing. Sincerely, if you have the means and you want to put the effort in, I can tell you this is the greatest job in the world. Whether you make money or not, there's a lot of chance in it, but you can increase your chances and reduce your risk by following some of the lessons in the book. And I love your punch-up. I think probably the best thing you said was do the fantasy. Sign up for all the syndicates, pretend you invested in 5, and see how that works out.
Keep a diary, write it all down.
Keep a diary, meet with the founders even, write it all down. Cost you zero, the broke angel. Okay, we'll see you all next time. Thanks, Gil.